Hello friends, let's recall what we have learned in previous video. We have seen about the chapter power sharing in political science, and in this chapter we have seen two cases of two different countries. First case of Belgium. So let's recall what we have learned. First about size and ethnic composition in Belgium. So in size Belgium is smaller than state Haryana and population is over 1 crore, so actually half than Haryana. So here showing location of Belgium, located in country Europe and borders with France, Netherlands, Germany and Luxembourg. Next, ethnic composition in Belgium. Ethnic composition in Belgium is very complex as 59% of total population those who are Dutch speakers and they live in Flemish region. Here this Flemish region which is indicated by blue color. And second minority those who are French speakers and they live in Wallonia region which is indicated here by red color. Remaining 1% are German. One more feature about the ethnic composition in Belgium is about the capital city of Brussels, where Dutch people are majority in Belgium. In whole country, those are minority in the capital city of Brussels, and French minority in whole country, they are majority in Brussels. So here, capital city of Brussels. 80% of population in Brazil, those who are French speaker, minority in the country, that means French people, and 20% in the capital speak Dutch people, those who are majority in country. Now, Belgian model of power sharing. The main concept we learned in previous chapter is power sharing. Due to this extreme complex ethnic situation in Belgium, Belgian government adopted series of amendments in the constitution during 1972-1993 and they adopted idea of power sharing. So let's see about power sharing. There shall be first feature of Belgian model is shall be equal representation from both communities in central council ministers. Means in central government equal representation of both the community Dutch as well as French. Second, some special laws required to support majority from both the communities. So many powers from the central government given to state government. That means in many areas, in many subjects, states, both Wallonia and Flemish, both the provinces became autonomous, but in certain subjects. Third form of government that adopted by Belgium, which is very special, called community government. And community government has a responsibility of particular community, whether Dutch, French, or German. No matter where they live, linguistic as well as education and cultural problems related to community government. And representative of a particular community government that elected by the particular community means people those who belong to particular community. More, Brussels has separate government, same as we have seen that in whole country, that means in Belgium, equal representation of both the community, as same as the whole country. In Brussels too, equal representation is given to the both the community, French as well as Dutch. So none of the community can make unilateral decisions without consent of other community. Now let's see advantage of this Bayesian model. It seems complex, but we can see that even in the history that this Bayesian model is successful to maintain peace and harmony with the country, and they maintain the diversity Now let's see the second case of Sri Lanka. Size of Sri Lanka about same as Haryana, and as we know, it's a neighboring island country which is around 35 kilometers far from our last point of India. And here ethnic composition is diverse as same as our country. So here mainly two communities are there. First Sinhala and second Tamil. So 74% of total population are Sinhala, constituted by Sinhala people, and 18% are Tamil people. One more feature about these two communities that Sinhala are Buddhist and Tamil speakers are either Hindu or Muslim. So there is one more feature about this Tamil, that Tamil are divided into two subcategories. Those are Sri Lankan Tamils and Indian Tamils. 30% of them are Sri Lankan Tamils, means those who are natively Sri Lankan. And second, Indian Tamils, means those forefathers, ancestors migrated from India as plantation workers. Now their region where they are concentrated, mainly that Sri Lankan Tamils and Indian Tamils, means Tamil community concentrated over northern and eastern regions of Sri Lanka. Now we have seen just Belgian model of accommodation, where Belgian government adopted a series of changes to maintain diversity as well as to establish peace and harmony in the country. But vice versa situation in Sri Lanka, because Sri Lankan government after the independence they adopted majoritarian in the country. We have seen earlier what is called majoritarian, that means decisions taken in favor of particular community with disregard of another community or communities. So first change took place in 1956, where Act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language in Sri Lanka with disregard of Tamil language. More we have seen that Sinhala only as official language, and then after preferential policies that adopted by the government, that means in university positions, in government jobs, in administration system, priorities, preferences given to the Sinhala community. So it was difficult for Tamil community, although they were eligible to get job, but they couldn't. Constitution was amended to protect and strengthen Sinhala language, as well as they patronize Buddhism as the religion of the nation. Patronize religion. So let's see the effect of this majoritarian steps taken by the Sri Lankan government. So Tamils felt isolated, of course they felt alienated within their own nation. They thought that even the constitution was against them because there was no equality, because generally constitution guarantees in democracy about equality, but here we can see there is no equality between these two communities. None of the political parties ever considered Tamils need, because they taken steps of majoritarian, they adopted majoritarian policy. The Tamils formed different groups, organizations, and political parties, and they launched various movements. They began to fight for their rights, and sometimes their movements led to violence between two communities. More their demands for recognition to their language and separate state. They demanded separate realm where they are constituted, but their demands of autonomous state were repeatedly denied by the government. This made some groups like LTT, Tamil Tigers, to take violent action, as well as ultimately this distrust between two communities led to the civil war in Sri Lanka. So due to civil war means kind of situation where two communities, that conflict between two communities, and they create war-like situation due to violence. And due to this violence, that many families displaced in Sri Lanka, many that lost their lives as well as damage of properties. So this is the tragic situation in Sri Lanka because they ignore power sharing. Now let's see why power sharing is desirable. As we have seen earlier, there are two reasons, mainly two sets of reasons why power sharing is desirable. We count them as moral reasons and prudential reasons. So let's take a look on moral reasons. Power sharing is desirable. Why? Because it's very spirit of democracy. In democracy, as many as people possible should get a chance to enjoy power, because sometimes people directly cannot take part in government, but indirectly, yes, they do. But if that possible, only if power sharing. Second, people are affected by all the policies of democratic policies, and they have to live with the effect because they are governed by the particular government, whole the nation governed by them. So actually, those policies and the government matter for the people, those who live. Hence, citizens need share in the power. A legitimate government is one where citizens, through participation, acquire stake in power, that we consider a legal, a legitimate government in democracy. So those are the moral reasons, and here prudential reasons. So very first prudential reason that we can see in case of Belgium. So in Belgium, that tense between 1950s and during 1950s and 1960s, during 2 decades, tense between two communities, Dutch and French. But as they adopted the idea of power sharing, the principles of power sharing, so they avoided the conflict between two communities. So very first, that conflict between different social groups, the absence of power sharing can result in divisions of country. Here we can say the case of, we can compare the case of Sri Lanka and case of Belgium. Imposing will of majority on minority might appear to be attractive, very it's like attractive for particular community, very beneficial to particular community, but for a short period of time, for a long term, that is very harmful. That we can see in the case of Sri Lanka. For a short period of time, it was like very beneficial to the Sri Lankan people, Sinhala people. But for long run, we can see that this majoritarian steps lead to the conflict and civil war. So for long term, that is very harmful for a country. Third, tyranny of the majority brings ruin both to the minority and majority as well. As we know that sometimes oppressive behavior and tyranny of majority over minority, that for a short period of time, that minority communities try to bear that tyranny, but for a short period of time. But over time, we can observe in the case of India or in the case of Sri Lanka as well, that when situation go beyond limit unbearable, at that time people also protest, people also that raise their voice, and this situation lead to conflict, violence, and sometimes like civil war condition, as same as in Sri Lanka. So here those are the reasons. So we can say that by this sets of reasons, that power sharing is extremely desired in any country, and especially for democracy. It's like a sense, a very spirit of democracy. And in democracy, we know that there are different forms of power sharing. How do the state or a democratic country, a democratic state, share this power? Let's see. So here there are different forms of power sharing. Very first, here horizontal or check and balance system. Horizontal system, that means your legislature, executive, and judiciary, three organs of the states, those who are sitting on the same line. That is why I call that horizontal power sharing, and they have their separate powers, they have their separate subjects, but yet they also look after their work. Means judiciary also review the work of executive as well as legislature. So we can say this system is called check and balance. All right, because legislature, they discuss, legislature means elected representatives, they discuss, they raise the problems, they find a solution, they make decisions, and their laws and decisions executed by executives, right? But they ask them questions. Judiciary, when were required, it prevent on certain laws, prevail certain laws. So here we can say that this is the system of check and balance. Second is vertical power sharing. Here you can see that different levels of the government. On the top there is central government, second middle state government, and third local government. So these are different levels, different tiers of the government. So they are called vertical power sharing, where different subjects, different powers and authorities given to different levels of the government. That is vertical forms of power sharing. Next one, that is power sharing among different social groups. Here we can see the example. We can take the example of Belgium, where community government is there. As well as in case of India, we can take examples of reserved seats in the constitution in different constituency seats or constituencies are reserved by the constitution for weaker groups or weaker sections of the society like scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So here there is one more form of power sharing, which is political parties and pressure groups. They make influence on government's decision. Different political parties, they take part in government, either in the way of alliance with other parties, as well as sometimes they form coalition government. So this is all about the power sharing. And one more important thing, please check the comment section below, and you'll find the link where notes are provided of this chapter. Thank you so much. See you in next chapter.